गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। गनर शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस द million dollar question, will Pakistan disintegrate? And to discuss this with me, I have Dr. Amjad Ayub Mirza. First, let me welcome him on to the show. Good evening, Amjad Saab. Welcome.
Good
We
evening.
are going
Thank
to
you very much for
discuss.
having me.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure completely. I must tell all the viewers, it's been a long time since both of us have been planning to discuss this subject. And कभी हाथ नहीं आया. Actually, when we were to last time discuss this, Bangladesh happened and the whole thing got delayed. So we'll go headlong into it. And yeah, now you're first class. Uh, you know, when you have a look at what happened recently in Baluchistan, we had a whole lot of attacks in all these places, southern Baluchistan, northwestern Baluchistan. Virtually, Pakistan was under siege for 2 to 3 days. You combine it. This is a violent attack, and the BLA has spread its wings. Then there is a peaceful movement, protest movement, where Gwadar was almost locked in for over a month. Look at it, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, same problem. The TTP is very active out there, and PTM is also active in a political manner. And last but not the least, even in Jammu and Kashmir, I mean, Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Gilgit, Baltistan. There is a lot of trouble. Amidst all this, Pakistan has still not got out of its economic downturn. There are internal political dissensions, and the political dissensions are actually growing. The question is this very simple: will Pakistan disintegrate? And that is what uh, I would request Dr. Mirza to analyze. And let's analyze it, you know, very without a bias to see where Pakistan is going, given this internal situation which is there and which is deteriorating day by day. This is what I had to say to start this show. Mirza Saab, all yours. Please take on.
Thank you very much, Jana Saab. Well, first of all, Pakistan has already disintegrated in terms of economy, its social fabric, its political, system, its system of governance. Everything has already disintegrated. But I know that when you said, will Pakistan disintegrate, that question basically is directed towards the geographical or the disintegration of Pakistan as a state. And that is a very difficult question to answer or give a timeline for that. But for sure, Pakistan is moving in that direction. This recent attack in Baluchistan by Baluchistan Liberation Army, I look at it as a dress rehearsal of a future much wider and much well orchestrated attack by the Baloch freedom forces to finally liberate their occupied country. If you remember, in January 1968, there was an offensive, very famous offensive, and I'm sure India military has it in its training course as well or syllabus. It's called Tet offensive, which was an attack on the day of the festival of Tet, which is a festival in which Vietnam people welcome spring season. And the day was chosen very carefully. And then the North Vietnamese army and the Viet Congs attacked the southern Vietnamese army and several American uh, bases and their camps. And that was a turning point in 1968 in the war of Vietnam's independence. And after 7 years, in 1975, American had to leave and Vietnam was freed. So this BLA attack, I look at it in the context of that similar context like Tet offensive of Vietnam. The second point you raised was about Maharang Baloch Dharna, which was a month long in uh, in Baluchistan's city of Gwadar. Now, I have been sending messages to Marang Baloch through my vlogs that she should now join the independence struggle, because up till now, even today, her whole political narrative is around reform in the Pakistan's security and judicial system. She is asking for and demanding for the uh, you know disappear enforced. Where are the enforcedly disappeared Baloch people? She's asking for an inquiry. She's asking for the state of Pakistan to stop practicing this kidnapping of Baloch people, students, lawyers, doctors, youth, farmers, laborers, and so on and so forth. But she still, her politics is still inside the framework of the state of Pakistan, whereas the BLA is outrightly fighting for the independence of Baluchistan. Now, my analysis, you can say, is that Marang Baloch, if Marang Baloch joins the call for independence, I'm not saying she should join BLA, but the call for independence of Baluchistan, if Marang Baloch takes that bold step, then Pakistan will disintegrate in very, you know, little time, very quickly. The only thing that is holding Baluchistan in the chains of slavery of Balochistan right now, as the struggle is intensifying, is the reluctance and maybe lack of vision of Dr. Marang Baloch and her expectations, false expectations that Pakistan is going to heed to her demands. And very sadly, she has issued a statement after the BLA attacks in which she has condemned violence, and she has said that her movement is a non-violent movement. And all along, I have been identifying that there are two types of movement in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and in Balochistan. Uh, Very strong movements, but different trends. One is a Gandhian trend, which we see in the Pashtun Tahfiz movement led by Manzoor Pashtun. That Pashtun Tahfiz movement is a purely Gandhian style, non-violent movement. And on the other hand, we see independent fighters in the form of maybe TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, who are fighting against Pakistan Army's occupation of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Similarly, in Balochistan, we see a very Gandhian approach in Dr. Marang Baloch, in her stance, in her politics, and we see a militant, uh, wing uh, that is fighting for the independence of the country by raising arms. So it's more like the 1940s India, where we had Gandhi and Shri Chandra Subhas Bose. And I think that Dr. Marang Baloch's statement that she condemns violence, I don't know uh, why she issued this statement. Maybe she wants to distance herself from BLA. But BLA is not conducting violence. Pakistan has conducted violence since 1948 in Balochistan. And what BLA is doing is fighting a war of liberation. So we have to be very careful when we choose our words for making a political statement. So coming back to the point of disintegration, Pakistan would have disintegrated in May and June of this year when the people of POJK, uh, came out in hundreds and thousands, occupied Muzaffarabad, and there was a massive long march, and for 5 days there was no government in POJK. But the objective factors for the disintegration of Pakistan was there in POJK. but the subjective factor, the will of the Indian government to take action was totally absent. And that is a very crucial, you know, side of the struggle for independence of nation states who are colonized by other countries. And Balochistan, the objective factors are there and ripe as well. What is missing is the subjective factors of the neighboring countries of the world community to step in and deliver this baby. So the role of India as or any other country as a midwife is missing, but the baby is ready to be born. And what happens is we have seen that in POJK. If there is no midwife, then there is a stillbirth. So what we see in POJK is a stillbirth. The time is gone. We have missed that opportunity. And now everywhere in POJK, the jihadis are taking over. They have arrested Asma Batul, who was a firebrand, pro-independence political activist. They have arrested her on the charges of blasphemy. Everywhere there are conferences and public meetings by the jihadists who are threatening the public of, you know, blasphemy and saying that anything that challenges the finality of the Prophet of Islam will be dealt with an iron fist, and so on and so forth. So objective factors for the disintegration are there. What is missing is the midwife's subjective role. Yes, Jonas.
Yeah, I think you made a strong case, and you have outlined very good points. I mean, which I'd like to reiterate, and then we'll have a discussion on them. You made a very important point that when you add look at the BLA or the Baluchistan movement and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa movement, there are two strains, one Gandhian strain and one a militant strain. Much and the parallel which you drew with the 1947 movement is also good. Independence, where Gandhi as against Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who was a little more militant in his approach. It's there, and you made the significant point that they have not got together as it. So that's a point which we need to discuss. The second thing which I think we need to discuss a little more is that the objective factors are there, the subjective factors are missing. So we'll discuss these two, but first the point of, do you think there's a possibility of the strains meeting, the Gandhian strain versus the militant strain, meeting either in Baluchistan or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or both? Right? Because, I mean, why I'm saying, if you look at this entire story over the past 5 to 6 years, right, things are slowly moving, like a balloon. It's just moving up and up and up. It's one day this balloon will burst. Now, that balloon will burst if, these trains meet. That's my view. Your comments on this?
Well, in the final analysis, we have seen in past history that Gandhian traits in liberation struggles, we are talking specifically about liberation struggles here. So in the liberation struggles, the Gandhian traits or the Gandhian kind of movements, in the final analysis, they always tend to become stooges of the colonial powers. And when the colonial powers decide that now is beyond their capacity to contain this territory as their colony, then they transfer the power to the Gandhian forces. And then these Gandhian forces are kind of the new guarantors of the interests of the colonizer in the territories. We have seen this happening in India. We have seen this happening in many other countries, including many of the African countries who got their freedom in the 1960s and 70s. So this is one thing. The other thing is whether they merge or they converge or they meet. No, I don't think so. I think that one has to do final in the final battle for liberation. If the militant, the freedom fighting or forces, they have to decisively defeat the Gandhian narrative. They have to decisively defeat them. So they kind of are fighting a war on two fronts. One is against the occupier, and the other is against uh, these narratives that, in the final analysis, are like Saulatkar narratives that go in the favor of the occupier. So it depends. I don't see them, you know, uh, I don't
merging.
see that at any point in time, Marang Baloch will be supporting the BLA or separation from Pakistan. Although she is very critical of Pakistan army, but I will be surprised if the Gandhian traits in Baloch politics, or for that matter in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa politics, uh, you know, converge and become one.
Okay. Do you, what, I mean, look, it might be a little hypothetical. What do you think would be the conditions for this merger? Or rather, I won't say conditions. Yeah, how will things go bad if there's a major massacre or something like that? Do you think that can come about, or an incident?
Well, uh, in any revolution or in any national liberation struggle, the question of massacre or wide scale violence boils down to one point, and that is how well organized and how well penetrated the revolutionary or the national liberation struggle organizations are among the masses. So that at the time of civil war, there is lesser and lesser bloodshed. If you are not prepared well, then there is a counter revolution. Always massacres are started by counter revolutionary forces. The massacre then cannot be contained. If you are well prepared and well entrenched in the society at grassroots level, at mohalla level, at ward level, then the question of massacre becomes
Human terror.
irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
But if you're not prepared, then the massacre, there will be massacre. And yeah, so the answer to your
Yeah,
question.
I think so. Look, what I'd like to highlight, and I sort of, I won't say sort of, I go fully with you, is that uh, war is politics by other means, right? And in this case, when the politics and the militancy is not on the same level with the same ideas, the outcomes will never be the same. In fact, the outcomes and the political objectives of both the militant wings of this whole struggle and the non-militant wings are at this point of time divergent. And as per you, if they're not going to come together, so very, I mean, the independence which they seek might not happen in a hurry. But the next question from that is, do you think this Pakistan army will be ever be able to control it? These two areas, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Baluchistan.
I doubt it, because already, um, you know, in Balochistan, Pakistani troops are scattered all over, and it's a very thin kind of layer of Pakistan army that is spread across Balochistan, and in many places they can't even go and take control. So the ground forces in Balochistan are significantly low. Pakistan Army's presence is very low, and I don't think Pakistan Army can ever cover the whole of Balochistan because it's a mountainous terrain, and the freedom fighters will always have the advantage of height in this guerrilla warfare. So I don't think. I think there will be more casualties in the coming days. Pakistan has threatened that they are going to go all out after these BLA people and so-called terrorists and all that. We have to see. There's Pakistan has been, very rhetorical about their, we are going to establish the rate of the country or the state and this and that. But when it comes to practicalities, Pakistan doesn't have the will and the means. Pakistan army is defecting, when it comes to Baluchistan. The GHQ there has received um, scores of resignations of young officers and non-commissioned officers after this BLA attack. Is a widespread demoralization. They don't want to go to fight in Balochistan. When it comes to the question of KPK, uh, KPK Pakistan cannot, you know, control because the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan have got the advantage of depth of field. They have got the advantage of crossing the border into Afghanistan in case they have to retreat. Baloch don't have that advantage, but because they can't retreat into Iran because the Iranians are also against Balochistan's liberation. So I don't see this these both these insurgencies coming to an end. What the problem is that if this is prolonged, then the in the long run, the main principal aim of these struggles might kind of diminish, and these organizations might turn into kind of smuggling mafias in order to you know uh, to help them get money and finance, and that is what happens. We have seen that happening in Latin American countries where revolutionary organizations ended up becoming drug cartels. So so there has to be a deadline or a hypothetical deadline कि भाई हमने ये इस साल ये करना है, अगले साल हमने आजादी ले लेनी है. So work your way backwards. What should we do now, in order to gain that aim? So, yeah,
So, okay, Shane. So it's a tough ask, but this area will remain undisturbed.
yeah.
You will have problems. Pakistan army will not be able to control it,
Mm.
but the move towards independence is far away. And in this thing, in the long run, what you're saying is that this could degenerate, and the whole story might get deflated. So that's an important thing. Now let's look at that subjective factor which you said when you said, look, May, June, we had this great opportunity in POJK, and India didn't do anything. Let me put my viewpoint at the outset so that you build on it. My view is, in case we want, forget about POJK and Gilgit Baltistan. My view is that in case you want to have a good grip on and peace within the Jammu and Kashmir, which we still within part of India, you need to externalize the situation. That's the first step for India. We can't keep defending Jammu and militants coming and all that. We need to externalize the situation in three parts. One is you gain control over Jammu. The second part is you gain control over the LOC and heat up the LOC, and so that there are repercussions for any mischief by Pakistan within our area. And the third, which is the most important thing, is you have to externalize the situation so that Pakistan has a fight on its land or what it claims to be its land, right? And it is, so I think that's the first step which we have to do. When you say we missed that opportunity in May, June, I agree with you partially. To that extent, I have a feeling that maybe India was not ready for it. And maybe India didn't have that kind of a thinking, the political thought process to do this. And in all these, you will agree with me, it's a political move which makes the difference. It's not the military move. Military is the last thing which has to do anything in POJK. I want your views on that. How do you think do we can make POJK politically relevant for India and for ultimate merger into India? And
Well, if I
there
take
are, yeah, please go ahead, sir.
if I take your assessment at face value, then that means that there is something very seriously wrong uh, in the Indian deep state or the Indian intelligence agency or the Indian sitting government, because we have been uh, for 4 years we have been reporting and informing the Indian government about the movement, about the developments, and if still they cannot, come up with a political plan or something like that, then they never will. I mean, uh, people of POJK now are not looking towards India. Let me tell you that. Up until May 2024, the youth in the universities, the colleges, the thelawalas, the people who are, you know, in involved in the movement, civil disobedience movement on grassroots level, were very seriously looking towards India. Today, they're not looking towards India at all, at all. Most of them have gone back to their, रेगुलर थिंग्स. अगर कोई ठेला लगा रहा था वो ठेला में चला गया, अगर कोई जॉब कर रहा जॉब कर रहा है, स्टूडेंट्स जो है वो किताबें लेके लाइब्रेरीज में बैठ गए, और एक एक मैसिव डीमोरलाइजेशन हुई है पूरी नेशन की वहां पे, कि इतने हमारे लोग वहां शहीद हुए, मारे गए, लेकिन एक स्टेटमेंट तक जो है वो इंडियन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स की तरफ से या यूएन का जो रिपोर्टर है इंडिया का यूएन में, उसकी तरफ से या किसी की तरफ से भी नहीं आई. तो उससे हमें बड़ा सेटबैक हुआ है, एंड इट विल टेक अस अ वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम. वी हैव कम बैक टू स्क्वायर वन, इवन बिलो, because now we have to convince people that why India did not, come out in verbally even to support the movement and to condemn the violence in POJK. And secondly, then again we have to start again from Diya Se Diya Jalao, which we did in the universities and colleges, and we had a large number of following, personal following, and the following of the idea of reunification of POJK with India. That is all lost, and it's a massive counter revolution now going on. And we have asked, I have asked my workers and activists of my party and to go underground and just keep their mouth shut and don't say anything against Pakistan army or Pakistan, or do any anti-Islamic statement or anything. And because this is the time to lie low, because this tsunami of counter revolution, let it pass. We can't handle it, we can't do anything. We don't have the arms to fight them. We don't have any logistic support to go up in the mountains and, take refuge in the nature. So so first of all, I think that I don't buy this, that India might not be ready or this or that or the other. If they are not ready for these things, today India is encircled from all sides by hostile neighborhood. And what is the if Indian government could not analyze and come up with a strategy uh, to counter the Islamists in Bangladesh or in POJK, then what are they doing sitting in the government? They are creating a dangerous environment for India. And look at Kashmir, Jammu Kashmir. The American ambassador goes and meets Farooq Abdullah, and he makes a U-turn. Before he was saying, I'm not going to contest elections. Now he suddenly says, I'm going to contest elections. What's going on? What's going on with Rahul Gandhi meeting NC people and, forming these alliances? What is happening on the northeastern border states? Why is Mamta suddenly threatening the central government with consequences along the whole of the northeast terrain? So a lot of things are happening. Awasi is meeting Americans. Bangladesh has just today released Al Qaeda leader who was in prison for life, who calls for jihad in India. Jamaat-e-Islami ban has been lifted in Bangladesh 4 days ago. In Jammu Kashmir elections, uh, you are trying to tell me that for the past 5 years since the abrogation of 370, the Indian government hasn't come up with a solution how to fill the 24 seats of POJK in the in the Jammu Kashmir Assembly. They have not even given tickets to die-hard Muslim BJP leaders in Jammu Kashmir. And on the contrary, the Jamaat-e-Islami has floated 4 candidates as independent candidates in Jammu Kashmir. So, I mean, if this is called governance, something is very seriously wrong. Now you ask me what should they do? Well, first of all, they should uh, talk to us. Today, this Shankar has made a speech at a book launch, and he said that uh, normal channels or whatever of the negotiations or talks with Pakistan is uh, thing of the past. कोई बातचीत नहीं होगी पाकिस्तान से and this that and the other. Okay, पाकिस्तान से बात नहीं होगी तो किससे बात करोगे? हमसे भी बात नहीं करनी, पाकिस्तान से भी बात नहीं करनी, तो फिर आईने के सामने खड़े होकर अपने आप से बात कर लो. मतलब है, he talks, Jay Shankar has, you take notice of this, he has got an aura of arrogance around him. He is not a kind of a diplomat that would go for solutions. He is creating blockades everywhere. तो इस किस्म की फॉरेन पॉलिसी, फिर अमित शाह और योगी जी का झगड़ा ही खत्म नहीं हो रहा, वो एक दूसरे की टांगे खींच रहे हैं, तो फिर हम कहां से आ गए बीच में? यही वजह है कि इंडिया की सिक्योरिटी चारों तरफ से खतरे में आ गई है, क्योंकि नोबडी इज टॉकिंग टू नोबडी. पीपल आर लुकिंग एट देयर वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट. मैं प्रधानमंत्री बनूंगा. जैसे वो प्रोग्राम है ना अमिताभ बच्चन का, कौन बनेगा करोड़पति. इंडिया में गेम चल रही है, बीजेपी के अंदर चल रही है, कौन बनेगा प्रधानमंत्री. ऐसे देश चलते हैं, ऐसे चलते हैं.
Right.
ये जो सवाकर जी का पुतला गिर गया है, ये क्यों गिरा है? मैं तो आई टेक इट एज अ साइन फ्रॉम द यूनिवर्स that your time is over. We have got 2/5 of our population is under the age of, I think, 25 or 30. ये बाबे क्यों बिठाए हुए हैं कैबिनेट में? यूथ को क्यों नहीं लेके आ रहे? We need a young India to be led by young generation, not this Cold War era के जो, या 71 की वॉर के जो वेटरन्स हैं, ओल्ड थिंकिंग प्रोसेस के लोग हैं. इंडिया नीड्स अ न्यू जनरेशन टू लीड द न्यू इंडिया, मैन. जनरल साहब,
Right. So you feel, yeah, I think that's okay. That's yeah, you have emoted fully what was there in your heart. That's okay. That's fine to say that that India, we have what you actually outlined as the internal issues which are prevalent in any healthy democracy, right? But that's part of the democratic game, and that's how India is, and that's how India has been.
democracy is not fit for India, sir. I beg to differ. I totally disagree with democracy in India. ये वेस्टर्न डेमोक्रेसी नहीं चल सकती यहाँ.
Look, let's be very clear. Neither can any other form of government run in India.
जी,
Having stayed here, neither can any other form of government run in India. It is only democracy which can rule, become, successful in India.
वेस्टर्न
And the fact
डेमोक्रेसी
that
नहीं चल सकती.
look, this is no more a Western democracy in the true sense. This is a democracy of its own kind. We have progressed. And I do agree that there are issues. There are no. I'm not going to defend the government. The government has made mistakes. There's no doubt about it.
Blunder, sir.
Equally,
Mistake is a small word. Government has made blunders. They have lost Bangladesh. They have lost POJK for now, at
see,
least.
these come in waves. They come in waves and go in waves. And when you look at it over a long period, this will come back. For example, what's
General
happened in
Saab,
Maldives?
please don't act
No, no, no,
in
no,
denial. Please
no,
face the
look,
facts,
no, you have a
identify the
point of view.
shortcomings, and
No,
fight
you have a
against them
point of view.
because
No, you have a
everyone
point.
else knows. The जनता सब जानती, ये जो जनता
No,
है
no,
ये सब जानती है.
no. देखिए, you have a point of view. I take it. That's why I didn't listen. But there are other points of view also. To say that a general of the Indian Army lives in denial, I think is overstating your case. And I'll leave it at that. Right?
Okay, I take
You,
my words
right?
back.
Be clear. No, one has served in J&K, one has served in the Northeast, one has served over 40 years to keep this country intact the way it is, right? And there is a little logic in what the government has done ever since Article 370. What points you made are very relevant to the extent that unless a certain amount of internal, strength is built, political strength and political consensus is built, you can't go across, which is right. There's no doubt. And to right, and that has in India, it has to be only democratic. There's no other way, right? I mean, your idea of democracy and our idea of democracy sitting within India might differ, but that's okay. Because if you look at the history of India and how things have gone about and how things have improved is dramatic. And no other country would have probably handled it. No other country would have handled the kind of insurgencies which existed in the Northeast, which have come on one level. And the change in the overall scenario in the state of Jammu and Kashmir is something very dramatic, if I may say. Is unless you stayed inside Jammu and Kashmir and fought with the militants and braved the bullets, the change is not well appreciated. And I've done all. I've done that. I've done that not only in the J&K, also in the Northeast. So to that extent, I agree with you that we need to be a little more proactive. I told you my first thing is that we need to externalize the situation. If we don't externalize the situation, we'll have internal problems.
Yes,
One. Number two, that I agree with you completely. In my own view, which I have articulated in this very channel, is that we have to do something across the LOC to regain JK back because that's our area. It's not someone else's area. There's no liberation there. It is only there. Whereas in Baluchistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, you could talk of liberation struggles. But in the case of POJK and Baltistan, it is our area which we have to retake back. And the point which you said about elections, even in this assembly elections which are to be there, definitely we can elect people. And there are different methods of electing people and making them sit in the assembly. I completely agree with you. Right? So, so these are my views. I'm sure you have stronger views because you're an affected party in a particular manner and you're locally more affected and you've spent your entire life struggling for your cause, which I completely acknowledge. So let's sum it up. Do you think Pakistan will continue as a state, what vegetative state it is, or do you see any improvement, or what do you think is the role of China and America in this, and where do you think the army is going, the Pakistan army? You also made a mention of internal dissent within the army and defections and all that. Do you think, because ultimately you'll agree with me, it's the Pakistan army which holds this geography together. So give me your
well,
idea of
Janasab,
this.
you see, as I mentioned earlier, the subjective factors are missing, but at the same time, the subjective factors to keep Pakistan intact are there, very much there, which are, as you rightly pointed out, China support. That is a subjective factor that is keeping Pakistan together. IMF loans are keeping Pakistan together. You know, UAE, Saudi Arabia, anybody who's trading with Pakistan or giving loans to Pakistan or rolling over the loans and saying, okay, abhi nahi do, 3 saal baad de dena. They are the subjective factors that are keeping Pakistan together. Otherwise, Pakistan has no chance to carry on as a nation state. No chance.
Yeah, I think yeah, you're right. Because Pakistan's only way, it's only I look at it. It's got two subjective factors. One, it's not a subjective factor or objective factor. It's both. One is the Pakistan army, because the Pakistan army is the state and the governance model. It is the center of gravity of Pakistan. The
सर एक
day
बात बोलूं जनरल
Pakistan
साहब,
army
एक
breaks,
बात बोलूं, एक बात बोलूं,
बोलिए बोलिए
पाकिस्तान
बोलिए
आर्मी जंग नहीं लड़ सकती.
वो हम
पाकिस्तान
मैं
आर्मी करप्ट आर्मी है. पाकिस्तान आर्मी एक बिजनेस एंटरप्राइज है. पाकिस्तान के जर्नैल कभी भी ना जंग लड़ना चाहते हैं, ना चाहते थे, ना लड़ेंगे. पाकिस्तान आर्मी से लोग क्यों डरते हैं? क्योंकि पाकिस्तान आर्मी के हाथ में गन है,
ज्ञान में
उनके पास टैंक है. आप ये टैंक और गन आवाम के पास आ जाए, जनता के पास आ जाए, तो ये जनता के सामने भी नहीं खड़ी हो सकती. अभी बलूचिस्तान आपके सामने है, सारा जो कुछ हुआ है, केपीके आपके
I
सामने.
agree with you.
इसको
I agree
आर्मी
with you.
कहना आर्मी की तौहीन है सर. ये गुंडे हैं.
नहीं, नहीं, but okay. But the fact is that they have a uniform, they are part of it, and they run the country. गुंडे हैं हम. I also agree with you. I
मैं
agree with
अब
you.
आर्मी के
So
खिलाफ नहीं बोलूंगा ज्यादा, क्योंकि आप आर्मी के
नहीं,
जनरल हैं, तो मैं वो सैंक्टिटी को बरकरार रखता हूं. लेकिन यूनिफॉर्म पहन लेने से फौजें फौजें नहीं बन जाती सर.
नहीं, नहीं, बात यह है कि वो है, तो यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड, जब तक वो नया टूटे पाकिस्तान भी ऐसे ही रहेगा.
चलो
एंड द
ठीक है,
सेकंड सब्जेक्ट,
ठीक है.
नहीं इसमें डाउट नहीं है. ये
नहीं ठीक है,
उनके पास
बैलेंस
सारे तथ्य
आपने अच्छा किया है. जहां मैं जरा तेज हो जाता हूँ, आप मुझे थोड़ा सा वो कर देते हैं, वो अच्छी बात है ये. आई लाइक
हैं.
दैट. हाँ.
And second, of course, the second subjective factor which you mentioned is, will America or China allow Pakistan to go down? Is a big question. In my own opinion, also, they will make all efforts not to let it go down. Right? So with this, I think we've traversed a whole lot of ground. Before I take a lot of questions here, right? And one from Baluchistan has also spoken up. We'll read out what he said. Because I think जनता की आवाज ये comments में है. We'll at least read it and understand what it is. I'm sure you have a better exposure about all this,
ठीक है.
right? So yeah. So finally, you said the disintegration of Pakistan is a little way away, but internally it already stands disintegrated,
या.
right? So we're going to see this situation going on, and I'll go with you to say that India needs to do something politically and take the
यस,
problem across into
एग्जैक्टली,
Pakistan,
बिल्कुल. वी
right?
हैव नेवर
And
आस्क्ड
uh,
इंडिया to do anything militarily. We have always
yeah,
asked them to do something
political,
politically inside POJK as well as
yeah,
on international forums.
yeah. I think so, and I will leave it at that, and I'll take a few questions and we'll read out a few comments. The first comment is from this person who says, "Free Baluchistan. Can't wait to enjoy our freedom soon. Pakistan will become Baluchistan. Punjab should return all electricity and resources stolen to Baluch soon. Until then, Pakistan is equal to Baluchistan." Yeah, your views, because he's also quite emotional about it, and probably is right.
Yeah, everything. If you take away the resources of Balochistan and POJK from Punjab, then Punjab has nothing. So he's right.
Yeah, yeah, he's right. Okay, now Akash says Dr. Mirza elucidated on the regional and domestic politics, all of which is known to all of us. Question remains: are these people inclined to the fold of their ancestors, that is Sanatan?
Okay, this question has been asked to me many times. Now, let me be very clear. Bhai, for the past 77 years, there is not even one copy of Bhagavad Gita in POJK or Gilgit Baltistan. There is not one operating mandir or Gurdwara in POJK or Gilgit Baltistan. People of POJK, this is the third generation growing up, know nothing about Hinduism, know nothing about Sanatan. So this question is I think it's a wrong question. Let them integrate. Then you come, open the temples, open the gurdwaras, tell them what is a Hindu, what is Sanatan Dharam. But if you don't know anything and you say नहीं पहले तुम सनातन धर्म को यस करोगे तो फिर हम तुम्हें लेंगे, तो फिर ये तो बड़ा अजीब सवाल है. इसका मतलब ये है कि you don't consider us Indians and you are using the communal, way of thinking to integrate uh, POJK and Gilgit-Baltistan into India. I don't really understand this argument. जब उनको पता ही नहीं है एक चीज का, तो फिर वो कैसे घर वापसी करें? ये है मेरा
Yeah,
जवाब.
yeah, I agree with you. I said कि घर वापसी के लिए एक रास्ता चाहिए, वो रास्ता है नहीं अभी. You know, the rasta for घर वापसी, for the thing to come back, for a person to say, okay, I want to be part of India, is not there, right? And I do agree with you. I think we lost that moment in May, June when things were on the boil. The least is we could have, you know, कुछ तो फेंकना चाहिए था in the air so that people have a hope. That hope was not created, and I'm with you. Okay, okay. Let's look at this question. Is good relations with Iran the reason Bharat doesn't overly support the people of Baluchistan?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Let me turn this question around. What do you think will be the role of Iran in this whole freedom struggle of Baluch people?
Iran is against Balochistan's freedom because they have got a massive population and territory of Balochistan occupied by them. I mean, it was transferred by the British to them, and so
The Sistan
Iran
area.
is against Baloch liberation.
Yeah. Okay. This Manoj Singh says, except South Sudan, I cannot recall any new country formation. How do you visualize the formation of new countries from Pakistan and its impact on India?
Impact on India will be very positive because uh, India is not an Islamic state to start with, and India is a big market, and nobody feels threatened from India. India does not attack other countries. India does not, you know, catch them in the net of debt, like debt trap or politics nahi karte. So India will be the first country that they would love to, be recognized for.
Yeah. And of course, he's talking of, I cannot recall any new country formation. What I'd like to tell you is, you see, it's not so. You go back a little in time, East Europe and the countries under the Iron Curtain broke up. For example, today, look at the erstwhile Czechoslovakia. It broke up into Serbia, Czechia, and Slovak Republic. So it's not as if new countries have not been formed. A lot of new countries have been formed ever since the Second World War. Okay, Russia itself is a new country. And don't be surprised if one day China also becomes a new country because of the way things are going there. Okay. Uh, okay. This is a view he has. So the Gandhian method will not work for Baluch and Pashtun because the Pakistan army, Punjabi army is not British. Pak army has used brutal tactics compared to the British. The Brits had a sense of law. He raised an important issue. I think
Well,
your view on
Pakistan
that.
army is one of the most brutal army in the region, and I think that the British have also done a lot of brutality in India during their reign. So
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Okay, this is a current question. He says, how does Dr. Mirza see the recent decision of Center to hold elections in J&K? Is there any link between the elections and your deadline of October for Pak Army and POJK?
no, our deadline has
This
passed.
is
The deadline was 22nd of October 2023, and that has passed.
23.
And then it culminated in the May thing, and we were expecting that in May this will happen. As an extension of our deadline, and things would change, but that unfortunately didn't happen. And decision of center to hold elections, I think it's an eyewash, nothing more than an eyewash for international media. These elections.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Arunachal. Arunachal also views your thing. He says we are dreaming of Garvapsi, and the other side is thinking of taking over. So he's going with you. I'll leave it at that. Uh, okay. I don't see any other. I don't see another interesting question coming up.
ठीक है.
Um, I, I, I really thank you for taking your time and
No, thank you very much for
some of your
having me.
views.
It's always a pleasure to have a discussion with you because पढ़े लिखे लोगों से बात करने का मजा आता है.
No, I particularly liked your outburst. I must tell you because you spoke from the heart. That's okay. ठीक है
और
and
जहां आपका दिल करता है आप मुझे वहां टोक भी देते हैं और मैं फौरन उसको रिकग्नाइज भी कर लेता हूं और मैं उसको करेक्ट कर लेता हूं.
No, we are mature people. It's
या
not
या
as if this thing. And
हाँ
yeah, maturity is an open discussion.
या
And I'm
एब्सोल्युटली.
glad you brought out important points. And we have a lot of convergences. And we'll have more such conversations. Right? And I'll personally look forward to it. And I'd like to thank you for joining us from London. Please have a good day and
यू टू सर.
happy day.
थैंक यू.
Thank you. Thanks
जय
a
हिंद.
lot and good
थैंक यू.
evening
जय हिंद.
and Jai Hind.
हाँ.